pianist Joe Neske. Give him another hand. That was beautiful. Okay, in the next slide, I'm going to be able to play the piano like that. I've got my order in. So, good morning, everyone. It's so good to see you. So good to see everyone. We just know and affirm that every single one of you, whether you're in the sanctuary or watching online, is here through God's perfect divine appointment and order. And it is our fervent prayer. We know that you bring something unique and wonderful to each one of us, and it is our fervent prayer that you take something equally unique and wonderful away. So I want to especially thank, as always, our ushers and greeters this morning who have been working tirelessly. I think last week I said it had been 40 weeks. It seems like 40 weeks. It's been about 23 weeks, I think, that we've been doing this. But at any rate, thank you for being on duty every single Sunday, keeping people safe. We just appreciate you so much. Give them a hand, please. And next, I'd like to thank our videography team, our promotion chair ministry co-chairs, Patricia and Dennis Reese, who are doing all the videography, getting it uploaded. We appreciate you all so much. Give them a hand. And just a reminder, I know it's really, really hard and it's not getting any easier, but we need to take all the precautions necessary for safety. Unless you have a medical reason not to do so, please wear your mask and wear it above your nose and maintain that 6-foot distance. And when we leave, we'll be dismissed by ushers. Please go directly to your cars. We're going to envision that day that we're going downstairs, but it's not today, okay? So I also want to thank everybody who took part in World Day of Prayer this week. Our prayer chaplain, all of you came and took part, thank you. And our prayer chaplains who were in the sanctuary in shifts from 8 a.m. till 7 p.m. They are amazing, and we thank you very much. Give them a hand, too. And next I have a note from our Youth Ed department, and it says, Dear Unity Church friends, the generosity of our church is ever present. The tremendous support the school drive received was just amazing. The supplies were donated to Long International Middle School. Home learning boxes were put together for students to pick up when they got their iPads. The notebooks, pencils, erasers, pens, and all the rest became part of the boxes. As we navigate through uncharted territory, please know you are a key factor in making it possible for kids to start school. Thank you very much. And it's from Dr. Cindy Gibbs, ESOL teacher at Long International Middle School. So thank you for that. I know that those went to good ends. Just one other brief announcement, and that is I just want to say that we are going to go forward with ordination on September 26th. It's not going to look the way I had hoped and prayed it would look. I am learning. Miss Manners would not approve how to uninvite the invited. It's not fun, okay? We will only be able to hold 40 or so people in the sanctuary, a few people upstairs. We do have some seating downstairs, thanks to Skip Hart, he's hardwired it. So I just had to make the difficult decision, after a lot of prayer, that we would include in the service board members, prayer chaplains, ministry chairs, and members of the ordination team. If you are interested in putting your name in a drawing for additional seats, that'll be probably up next week. But the good news is we can invite everybody to the dinner afterwards if you feel safe coming. So has everybody received that email yet? No? Okay. Yeah? Well, I think okay. So if you haven't received an email about it, you will this week. Those of you who are not in the first list will this week. So thank you for all your love and support toward that. Okay, at this time, I'd like to introduce our prayer chaplain, Ms. Linda Harr, who will not only read the daily word and lead us in prayer, but also explain the procedure for praying after service, if you wish to do so. We've had 2 prayer chaplains on service throughout this time, so please do come for prayer if it's on your heart. Thank you.
Good morning. Today, myself, along with Hope Godson, where are you, Hope? Okay, there she is. We will be honored to be your prayer chaplains on duty day. And at the end of the service, we will be on either side of the sanctuary at the back, and it will be our honor to be your prayer chaplains. And as always, all prayers, whether they are of something you wish to be uplifted in gratitude or something that's on your heart, a little heavier, whatever it is, we will be held in sacred confidence as always. So please see us after service, and we will be honored to pray with you. So today's daily word, I was really excited to see, because this is one of my favorite subjects, is love. And I'm going to say the opening affirmation, and then I ask you to repeat it with me. I open my heart in love. Would you repeat that with me? I open my heart in love. I express the love I feel in my heart by showing my affection and giving nurturing attention. I speak loving, positive words that let those I care about know how much they mean to me. As my words affirm their goodness, beauty, and intelligence, I watch those qualities bloom like flowers blessed by sunshine. I extend my arms and embrace my family and friends with the warmth and comfort of unconditional love. I support my loved ones with compassion and care on their journey through life. I share my wisdom as I teach, my experience as I advise, and my understanding as I console. I pray for those I love, knowing that the Christ within them is the light that guides them everywhere they go and in everything they do. I am grateful for my role in my loved ones' lives. And from 1 John 3:18 we read, "Little children, let us love, not in word or speech, but in truth and action." And would you pray with me this morning? And with everything within us, may we always know that it is not words, but it is the actions of the love of the Christ within us as we reach out to everyone that we see, that we come into contact with, that our hearts express the love within us to go without, to reach out, to just be understanding, unconditional love. And as we go forward this day, may we just be love in action. It is so, and so it is. Amen. And God bless each and every one of you.
Thank you, Linda. It's beautiful. So, today, I forgot my clicker. Thank you, Bob. Today we begin a new series focused on change and transition. I bet you can guess why I chose that topic, right? We're certainly in the middle of a change right now. Thank you. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus is credited with saying the only constant in life is change. We've all heard that, haven't we? In the natural world, a tadpole transforms into a frog. A crawling caterpillar becomes an exquisite winged butterfly. A helpless newborn baby, just a few years later, is ready for kindergarten. Seasons change, each bringing its own unique beauty and wonder. The whole universe is marked by a harmonious ebb and flow of change, our human lives included. Just think about it. We are born, grow up, find jobs, build relationships, change jobs, end relationships, marry, move, retire, see children and grandchildren, grow up, lose loved ones, and endure life changes forced upon us by a pandemic. Some of these we chose, and some of these we clearly did not. But either way, in our human skins, we often resist change. In the words of educator Roy Blitzer, the only person who likes change is a wet baby. But if you you've ever had the experience of changing babies, you know that even an unhappy, wet one doesn't like to hold still and endure the process, right? Certainly, adult resistance to change is more subconscious and subtle, but in our human skins, we tend to cling to the current and the familiar. Our resistance may be rooted in fear of losing control, or it might be rooted in fear of failure. We're afraid to step out. Sometimes we resist change even when the change is our own idea. I remember several years ago, my husband Bob and I were looking for some wooded property to build a new home. And we had searched for years, and just almost miraculously, we were led to the absolute perfect property for us. It was level, like Bob wanted. It was surrounded by woods, like I wanted. And it was close to conveniences. And yet, I found myself dragging my feet. At one point, Bob said to me, "What is going on? I thought this was your dream." And it was, but there were a lot of things I had to let go of to make it happen. And so even those changes that we choose require us to give up old for the new, sometimes to give up the good for a greater good. I'm sure you can think of times in your life when that's the case. It can be worse still when those ready or not abrupt changes throw us into the most universal of all human fears. Can anybody guess what that is? The most universal of all human fears? I can't hear your answers with your mask on, so I'm assuming you gave me the right answer, okay? It is fear of the unknown. Fear of the unknown. In the book, Finding Yourself in Transition, Using Life Challenges for Spiritual Awakening, Reverend Robert Brummett helps us discover how to use our changes as a gateway to greater personal and spiritual growth. He explains that one of the deepest of our human needs is to find meaning in our experiences. In the face of change, loss, tragedy, we often think, we talk about this question a lot, why did this happen? Or, why did this happen to me? Change, especially when it's deep, sudden, unexpected, and painful, can challenge the meaning we've created to make sense of life. I have a really good friend who a few years ago was diagnosed with a life-threatening diagnosis. And the first thing she said to me was, "Oh no, this can't be right. This has to be wrong. I am a healthy person." Well, actually, that attitude helped her to heal. But the point was, it didn't compute with the reality she knew. So triggering events, like serious triggering events, much more serious than building a new house, serious triggering events like the death of a beloved partner, a divorce, or a natural disaster take us into unexplored territory and rock what we consider to be the ground of our being. To some, and I've heard people say this to me, it can almost seem worse than death itself. So, according to the author, Reverend Brummett, every new beginning, every change is a type of death, a death to the old way of living or being. The paradox of change is actually that in releasing the past, dying to the old, that's really a part of the growth process. Just like the acorn that must drop from the tree and die to its acorn identity, in order to become a mighty oak, we also have to change and grow to die to the old. So, here's the question. What is the difference between change and transition? Sometimes you hear these terms used interchangeably, but change is really something that happens to us, chosen or not. John Maxwell said, "Change is inevitable, growth is optional." So transition, on the other hand, is an internal process. It happens within. Change can be sudden. Transition usually occurs over time. Like every process, you scientists will get this, like every process, it has predetermined phases that occur in a sequence at the right time, in the right order. And Brummett says, and this is really the good news today, Brummett says, when we trust the divine wisdom and order within circumstances and within the process, it becomes a time of accelerated growth. Well, We certainly are in the middle of a challenging change, or lots of challenging changes right now, are we not? Our old life has been disrupted and distorted. We yearn for a time that we can be together, closer than 6 feet, take off our mask and smile at one another, right? Someone said to me last week as I was standing on the parking lot after service, I can't wait to go downstairs after service for coffee and conversation. How many of you felt that? Just that lack of being together physically. We're still together, but physically. Well, in the end, I know that we will emerge with new appreciation for one another and a deeper sense of our oneness and connection. Brummett tells us that these times of transition are opportunities to bolster our strength and wisdom and experience spiritual breakthroughs. So when we feel lost, even annihilated, our pain can cause us to open to deeper levels of our sacred identity. Rumi wrote, I love this quote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." So it turns out that there are actually 3 stages to transition. Brummett notes that they are not necessarily linear or clearly defined, and sometimes they overlap and reappear even after we thought we had worked through one stage. Each stage holds specific gifts for us, but it's up to us to recognize and accept them. So the first stage is actually the ending. Seems a little weird, isn't it? The first stage is the ending. Sometimes that's called separation or departure. T.S. Eliot wrote, "What we call the beginning is often the end, and to make an end is to make a beginning. The end is where we start from." Our human lifetime holds innumerable beginnings and endings. Every breath, every experience, every relationship has a beginning and an end, as does our physical body. Brummett says, in our Western world, and think about this, in our Western world, we tend to acknowledge and celebrate, have big parties over beginnings, but we lament or deny endings. We rejoice at birth and see what is called death as a tragedy, even though many African cultures do just the opposite. We celebrate weddings and see divorce as a failure. Even in a graduation exercise, sometimes called a commencement, right, a beginning, speakers talk about the vast and limitless future that lies ahead. So maybe the reason we discount endings is to minimize the grief of loss. Every ending is a loss, even if you chose it. And grief is a normal reaction, normal human response. If we deny or stuff our pain, we build up residual grief. Also, we can experience what's called cumulative grief. The chaplains actually explore this in the chaplain program. Cumulative grief is just one after another loss coming at you. Boom, boom, boom. Just the way you think you can hardly handle it. I had been my mother's main caretaker for well over a year when she made her transition. And I felt like I had grieved all along. I really did. I was sad when it was finally done, but I just felt like I'd already grieved. 4 months later, my stepfather of 34 years made his transition, and I told myself he was better off because he was finally free from Alzheimer's. Just a few weeks after Paul passed, my beloved 14-year-old black cat had to be euthanized. And I'm here to tell you, I was absolutely devastated. I pretty much fell apart. Now, certainly it wasn't that I loved my cat more than my parents. Are you listening, Mom? If you are. It wasn't that. It was just that I felt like I could not endure another loss. I'm sure a lot of us have been there. But Brummett says the ending stage is a time of breakdowns and breakthroughs. In this stage, it's crucial that we take time to feel what we feel, to explore what our feelings reveal. We may experience fear, sadness, grief, resentment. We may experience those all together. And certainly those feelings will eventually pass, but the discomfort at the moment that we feel is real. Sometimes in unity, I think we're too eager to go around saying, it's all good, when our hearts are absolutely breaking. It's all good in the absolute realm, but we can have issues in this relative plane. So only by allowing our feelings to surface, exploring them, maybe talking about them, and certainly taking them into prayer and meditation, can we eventually release what needs to be released. A biblical example of the transition process, a good example I think, is the story of the exodus of the Hebrews from Egypt to Canaan in the Hebrew Bible. Now, Reverend Brummett actually devotes an entire chapter to this in his book, so if you want to read it, grab a book and you can do so. But he notes mainly that its significant lies not just in the geographic escape to the promised land, but in what took place during the journey. During the journey. It was not in the promised land, but in the wilderness, that the Israelites were transformed from a nomadic tribe of refugees escaping slavery to a nation with an identity, a covenant, and a mission. This shows us that the power of the transforming process is not in our arrival at a certain destination as much as we yearn for that, but in our experience of the journey itself. It's in the voyage. Remember that the Hebrews had originally moved from Egypt because of the famine in Canaan. We talked about that with David's story. That was a godsend at the time. But 400 years later, it was a different Pharaoh and a different set of circumstances. This shows us that much of our old way of life was formed as a response to needs we once had. But those attitudes, beliefs, and patterns of behavior that served us in the past can imprison us later. Not all of them. We have to use our power of discernment to figure out which ones. But it's like we studied the 5 agreements. All those agreements that we thought were so important to us, eventually we realized no longer serve us. So Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore tells us that we are in Egypt when we experience any type of bondage or limitation. As we know, the ending of bondage does not come easily for the Hebrew people, just as some of our life endings do not come easily for us. The Egyptians pursue the Hebrews, trying to recapture them, and instead of being grateful for their escape from slavery, the Israelites actually succumb to fear, turn to their leader Moses, and ask him in effect, "What have you done to us? You should have let us stay back in Egypt where we would not have starved. At least there was food." But Moses tells them, and this, I believe, is the message for all of us, right here, right now. He tells them, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm and see the deliverance the Lord will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians who you see today may never return again." So sometimes our endings in this life can be as frightening as being pursued by the Egyptian army. They shake our world and leave us feeling devastated. Bible scholar Reverend Ed Townley says, whatever the Egyptians might represent in our consciousness, whether it's fears, resentment, thoughts of lack, we could very well spend our entire lives running from them, constantly looking over our shoulders to see if they are gaining on us. Instead, we can choose to know that we never face our endings alone, that the Christ of our being can give us strength and always lead us to ever unfolding good, no matter what. This is the time, this sort of end of the end, I would say, end of the ending stage, is the time to gain a new understanding of God and to awaken to our own divine nature. Brummett says that even though the endings can be challenging, the next stage is the one that touches our deepest feelings of helplessness. Oh boy, just what we want to hear, right? But there's hope at the end. He calls the next stage, Brummett calls the next stage the void. Now other writers and theologians and psychologists have other names for it. Some of the other names are what now? Surrendering to the unknown. I love this one. This is one we're in right now. The time between no longer and not yet. Is that not where we are? We can identify with that one. And from the second book that we're going to study in the series, Reverend Ellen Davenport calls the void Hell in the Hallway. We're going to start that book next week. So like being adrift on an endless sea, the void can be a time of emptiness, unraveling, chaos and confusion, vulnerability, and loss of identity. One of my friends who took early retirement from teaching said to me shortly afterwards, "I used to be an educator. What am I now?" She was wandering in the wilderness for a while. The wilderness symbolizes undisciplined, error thoughts in our human consciousness. And those thoughts can serve as a barrier to the good that God has in store for us. They're never imposed by Godness, but they can be imposed by our own consciousness. And the Foursquare number 40 symbolizes a foundation, a time for preparation. That's why Lent has 40 days. And we are guided, we are definitely guided through the void and eventually to transformation. But notice I said eventually. Remember, the Israelites spent 40 years wandering in the desert. And metaphysically, the number 40 means what? So you know what? As long as it takes. As long as it takes. We live in an instant waffle, instant data society. We want everything as fast as our high-speed internet, right? The truth is, to everything there is a season, and some things have to unfold in their own timing. We remain in the void as long as it takes for the process to work, and as long as it takes for us to work through our thoughts and feelings of uncertainty, to turn our pivotal soul and from the chaos around us to the truth of God's divine goodness. The void is actually a passageway to becoming truly awake and truly alive. We have to trust the process instead of trying to force something to happen. I'm seeing I'm not the only one, right? We love to force what we want to happen. Brahman says, don't try to push the river, just let the change process flow. This means we take each day, each moment as it comes. We don't try to reconstruct the past or to go back to our old way of life. You know what happened to Lot's wife when she did that? She turned to a pillar of salt. It rarely works. We pray and meditate. We trust in God and in our own inner wisdom, even when we feel hopeless. And at this time, in the void, we take stock of our resources and our gifts. My friend who retired early and felt that loss of identity ended up turning to something she loved and was good at doing, making delicious chocolate candy for her friends and colleagues. After retirement, she started selling her goodies at craft fairs and specialty shops, and actually created a thriving small business out of something she loved. At this moment, actually, she is distributing the gifts of candy to her neighbors free of charge. Just something sweet, she says, with her little note to survive. So let's just set the intention throughout this current void to use the same resources that Moses followed. The voice of God, the inner voice of our own indwelling Christ. And in that process, however long it takes, divine guidance will be revealed to us in new and unexpected ways. In the book, The Hell in the Hallway, Light at the Door is the other part of the title, Reverend Ellen Davenport says that no matter what put us there, our needs in the hallway, the void, really are similar, even something serious or something life-threatening. She says we will probably need the following. We will probably need to accept strength, comfort, and guidance from other people, even if that's on Zoom or over the telephone. We will need to cherish our time alone, to be quiet and to love being in the quiet, to take walks, to journal, to create or pray. We will need to forgive people, groups, and circumstances. We will need to become willing to see the gifts in the situation, to wake up in the morning and say, today I'm going to find the gifts. We need to be willing to understand and accept a new reality. When the Israelites finally got to Canaan, it was not what they expected. And we have to think about that as we envision our new reality. And eventually, we have to be able to be ready to open a door to the next chapter of our lives. Once we have completed the inner work of the first two stages, the ending and the void, we will be guided to the final stage of new beginnings. Brummett's advice here is be ready but not anxious, be alert but not willful. As we envision our new beginnings, we join together to affirm that the indwelling Christ Spirit gives us all the strength, courage, and faith we need. Martin Luther King's quote on faith is one of my favorite ones. He said, "Take the first step even though you cannot see the entire staircase." And that's what we need to do in the days ahead. In the end, change may be the only constant in our relative world. It may be that Hercules was right. But by fully surrendering to the process of outer change, we come to understand that which never changes. That is eternally the same yesterday, today, and through all of our tomorrows. The subject of today's daily word, God's love. God's love is our one constant, and we are here on this earth to be that love in expression. We are one with the Most High and with one another. We are one, we are interconnected and divinely guided. And so we need to remember what the caterpillar calls the end, God calls the butterfly. And so let's take a moment now to come together, even though we're masked, to affirm our great truth about the divine. Together, there is only one presence and one power in the universe and at work in my life. God, the good, omnipotent, and so it is.
There's the holy hush around us as God's glory fills the place. I've touched the hem of His garment. I can almost see His face, and my heart is overflowing with the fullness of His joy. I know without a doubt that I've been with the Lord. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. I can feel His mighty power and His grace. I can feel the rush of angel wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place.
And so now, I invite you to close your eyes if that's comfortable and you have not already done so. Take a deep, relaxing breath, inhaling deeply, and then exhaling slowly, gently. Relax any tension in your body. Just feel it melt away. And as you take another deep breath, just feel yourself going inward, Godward, into that inner sanctuary of pure peace and pure divine love. And as you exhale this time, just let go of any Egyptians, any thoughts of worry, fear, or lack. See them fade into the nothingness that they truly are. And as you continue breathing in and breathing out, with every exhale, release anything that is keeping you from being fully present to this now moment. Anything on your to-do list, any worries, any angst, just let them go for now. And as you feel your breath return to its normal rhythm, follow your breath, still your mind, open your heart, and turn to the truth within. You are now and always in the presence of pure being, immersed in the Holy Spirit of life, love, and wisdom. Claim this now. Feel this now. Know that God is love and you are love. God is peace and you are peace. God is wisdom and you are wisdom. God is perfect divine order and you live and move and have your very being in that order. In this consciousness, open your heart to these words from Eric Butterworth. There is that within you that is greater than your weakness, stronger than your fears, the four-dimensional creature that is whole even within your sickness. There is that of you that is the perfect ideal of divine mind. And just know that any change on this outer plane, whether chosen or thrust upon you, is only an invitation for you to grow, evolve, and transform. You are on this earth, as Charles Fillmore told us, to be all that you can imagine God to be. If you are struggling with any change in your life, imposed on you from the COVID-19 situation or any other challenging change, ask yourself where you are in the process of transition. You may not be able to change those outer circumstances, but you can focus on inner change. Remember that every new beginning requires an ending. Are you willing to use your power of renunciation to release old habits and behaviors that are not the truth of you, that are holding you back? If you are in the void, the hallway, are you willing to use your powers of faith and wisdom to give it the time it takes? Are you willing to look for the gifts? The quickest way through the void is to embrace each moment fully and then let it go. Darkness will pass when you move toward the light. When you are ready to use your powers of imagination and discernment to embrace your new beginning, the universe will respond. Through the power of God within, where perfect peace and strength dwell, you will emerge. We all will emerge stronger, wiser, and freer. Contemplate this for a few moments in the silence. And now we come together, whether you're in the sanctuary or watching online, we come together as a greater spiritual community. So grateful for our individual Christ powers and gifts, and so grateful for one another. We set the intention to see change in our lives as opportunities to express our true nature. And so it is, and so we joyously allow it to be, and we say, Amen.
made the sea and the land. He held all the stars in the palm of his hand, and they ran through his fingers like grains of sand. And one little star fell alone. Then the Lord God hunted through the wide night air for that little bright star on the wind down there. And he stated and promised he'd take special care so it would never get lost again. Now man don't mind if the stars grow dim and the clouds blow over and darken him, so long as the Lord God is watching over them, keeping track how it all goes on. When I've been walking through the night and the day, and my eyes get weary and my head turns gray, and sometimes it seems maybe God's gone away, forgetting the promise that we heard him say. We get lost out here in the stars, little stars, big stars, glowing through the night. We get lost out here in the stars, little stars, big stars, glowing through the night. When we're with God, we'll never be lost out there in the
Thank you, Dean. He was accompanied today by Carol Beth True, piano. So now we come to that time in our service where we pause, reflect, and give thanks for our many blessings. I just want you to know that your Board of Trustees is making every effort to refrain from dipping into our reserves during this time, and we so appreciate all of your notes, your prayers, and your checks and offerings. We appreciate it very much. We know and affirm that we are one with divine source and with each other. So please join me in blessing our many gifts and offerings. Together, divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, Father. And our service will end in a few moments with music by Joe Neske. Give him a hand again for being here today. We thank you so much. Thank you. I hope you can come back sometime, Joe. Afterwards, after he's finished, the ushers will begin to dismiss, so please wait until they do so. If you wish to pray with the prayer chaplain, just indicate that and remain in your seats. And we hope you'll join us next week as we continue to explore Hell in the Hallway, Light in the Door. It's a great book. And until next week, thank you for being with us. We look forward to seeing you either here or online, on our Facebook page and website. We appreciate all those of you who are following us on Facebook, liking and sharing our posts. In oneness, please know that we are always holding you in prayer. Thank you.